Today I'm going to show you two different sorts of bread. One is with the active malt and one is with the roasted malt, which is not active anymore because you kill the enzymes when you roast it above more than 30 degrees Celsius in the oven. So I've prepared everything. This is the flour. It's two sorts of flour. One is the bread flour, wheat, and the other one is like a whole wheat flour. Just stir it a bit. Then I've got my sourdough, which I've been feeding the last 2 days. And then I'll put in there 300 grams of water. Mix it a bit. This is the active malt, which I've made a few days ago. It's very light in the color. And this one is the roasted one, which you can see that it's much darker from the color. And it has a different flavor. So this one change the starch into sugar, which brings out the color in the bread, and the fermentation and the digestion is much easier for you when you use active malt. So I'm using on this is just a pre-dough. This video will be on 3 days or 3 times. So tonight I'll do the pre-dough, then tomorrow morning I'll do the actually dough, and then later in the afternoon tomorrow I'll bake the bread, and then I'll show you what the difference is between the active malt and the roasted one. So I'll put 15 grams of malt in there, 14, 15. Just give it a stir. No salt in there yet. And I put that with the active malt and the flour. It will be a very soft dough. That's number one. Number two, we use the roasted malt after putting the water in there. That's 300 grams as well. I'll warm up the water a bit because it's very cold now in this time of the year. So I have about 30 degrees of the water. Give it a stir again. Put the active malt in there, 30 grams as well, because I don't want to have it different to the other recipe. The flavor will be much stronger in this bread with the malt, with the roasted one, but the color will be different. Okay, that's it for tonight. I'll put that with I've got this shower caps. I'll scrape it down in a minute. Then this shower caps go on, and then they go up in my cupboard here, where it's about 20 to 23 degrees. This is 22 now. so this is just right till tomorrow morning. And this heat in the cupboard comes from the fridge, from the motor in the back. So I'll leave that till tomorrow morning, and then I'll see you in the morning again and continue. I'll put that on YouTube, and then I'll put a link onto Facebook as well to my channel. See you in the morning. Bye. Good morning. This is part 2 of our sourdough bread. Last night I've prepared the pre-dough, which proved overnight. This is the active one, where we had the enzymes still in from the malt, and the other one is the not active one, which we roasted. It looks the same, just a bit browner than the other one. Okay, I'll do that later. On this one I'll put the salt in now, which is rock salt, 10 grams. I just put it in before I put the flour in, that it mixes in nicely. Olive oil, 10 gram. Then I start to put the flour in. Don't worry, we don't mix everything by hand. But I don't want that the flour sits in the mixing bowl in the bottom. That's why I start mixing it by hand. And this dough is for 1 loaf of a sandwich bread, which are this loaves here. Okay, that should be all right. Goes in here. Okay, we don't need to clean that up. I'll put some olive oil in there in a minute, where the dough goes back for the second proof. Just start slowly with mixing, just to make sure that all the flour is in the dough and not sitting in the mixing bowl on the bottom. I usually let the dough run for 8 minutes on high speed, so quite fast, and then take it out. It will be quite soft. And then put it back in a plastic bowl with some olive oil, just that it doesn't get the skin, and put it back in my cupboard to brew for about 4 hours. It depends always on the temperature which is in the cupboard. Last night we had the temperature of 22 degrees. I'll show you later how much it is when I put it in, and then it depends how long the dough will be in there. Okay, I'll see you in a minute. When these 8 minutes are over, or nearly over, then we come back to you. Okay, that's the 8 minutes now done. Let's have a quick look in the bowl, how stretchy it is. This is all the gluten which is ready to go for the bread, nice and stretchy. Look at that. Just take it off. I'm going to use the hook and the bowl for the other bread with the roasted malt. Will be the same procedure. We just checking it later when we bake the bread how the color difference is. And we're going to test how sweet it is and how the smell is. I'll put some olive oil in there, just so it doesn't stick to the bowl. This is about 10 gram, I would say. You take the dough out. If you would do it by hand, you probably have to do it a bit longer, like 10 minutes maybe. Just fold it over a few times. And put the shower cap back on, then it goes back in the cupboard. And I'll just check the temperature. This is 21 degrees in there. The dough is about 20 degrees. So I would say about 3 to 4 hours for the first proof. Then we put it in the baking tin. Then it has the next proof, and then we bake it later in the day. So you just have to work your day around the dough, where you know you still can go out and stuff, as long as you know what the temperature is like. Then you know it takes about 3 to 4 hours. If it's warm in there, like 23 to 25 degrees, then it might just take about 2 hours, where you should be back then and just check on your dough then. Okay, I'll see you later in the day again. So this is the time where the dough has been proofed. This is the inactive one, and this is the active one. It's a difference in the color. Don't know if it's alright with the sun. It was now for 2.5 to 3 hours up in the cupboard above the fridge. So I'm just folding it over instead of knocking it down and work too hard with the dough. You just want to fold to get the gluten more working, and to have a nice and dough which holds its shape by itself. So you just take it from one side, fold it over, do it another time, about 8 to 10 times. Okay, then you take it out. It's nice and sticky. Just make it a bit long. Don't worry about the stickiness, okay? That's what you want. Put it in there. Okay. And that's the active one. Same again. Out. Make it a bit long. Put it in the mold. Okay. Put the shower cap back on. Some people say that you can use cling film. I prefer it this way because you're going to use it every time again, instead of throwing the cling film away after finished with the bread. I said before about the proofing in the cupboard above the fridge. The other way is to have it in the oven and just have the light on. There's a temperature now about 25 degrees, which is alright for like another 2 hours, 2.5 hours, just to have it double the height of the sourdough in your baking tin before you take it out of the oven, put it on the side and switch on the oven. About the steam, you can use like a water sprayer. What I do is I use one of the dishes, heat it up in the oven when I preheat it, and then put some water in there. So I'll see you in another 2.5 hours approximately, and then we're going to bake the bread in the oven. I'll see you later. Right, this is nearly it for today. The dough has proofed for another 3 hours maybe in the oven. About 24 degrees, 25, and now it's ready to put in the oven. If you stick your finger in, you don't want to have a hole in there. You want that it still comes back out. Okay. All right. So this goes in the oven now. I've got it's about 230, 240 degrees. I've put the tray in the back, or the baking dish, or whatever you call it. So I put the bread in there first. This one was the active malt one, the big one, and this one is the roasted malt one. Water in, and you can see the steam coming up already. Close the door, and this stays in there for about 15 minutes now. I set the alarm for it, 15 minutes, then I take the water out, then it takes another 15 minutes to bake. I don't show you how I take the water out, so the next time I'll see you is when I take the bread out, turn it out, and show you the difference in the colors. Okay, I'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, now we are ready to take the bread out of the oven. This one is the active malt one, and this is the roasted one. Oven off. Okay, I'll turn it around. Then you can see the difference in the color already. You see how golden brown this is. This is with the active malt, and this is just with the roasted malt. So this is much nicer brown, golden brown, and this is just like a British bread. Right. So I can't cut it now, but you can see the difference in the cut, or where it opened, how the difference of the colors, and I think it's just amazing what this bit of malt does when it converts the starch into sugar and brings all this color out and taste as well. I mean, the malt, the roasted one, brings a more hearty taste, maybe smell as well. We have to see that later or tomorrow morning when we cut the bread. But I think it's amazing what it does. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in a bit when we do the next video, show you something different. Good morning. Yesterday I showed you everything, how to bake the sourdough bread. 2 loaves. One was with the active malt. You can see the difference in the color, and this one is baked with a dead malt, which is the roasted one. So it doesn't do anything to the dough anymore. It just might give you the flavor you want, a bit of a stronger one. And here is like the malt, the active one, the enzyme converts the starch in the flour into sugar, which brings out the color and makes it easier digestible for you, and the fermentation is much better for it. So we're going to cut the bread now. I usually start in the middle, not today. That's the active one. and this one is the inactive one. You can see the color is darker from the roasted malt, but this one is lighter in the color and should be more digestible and brings more, I think it brings more flavor for me than this one. But we're going to try it later anyway. I mean, we had it a few times. This is just to show you. Look at that. So this smells a bit more sour than this one. This smells a bit stronger than like a nice bread. I would use the roasted malt more like for a whole wheat bread instead for white one. But that's to everyone to decide what they do. I think it's quite easy to do the malt. It's just like you water it and let it stand in a warm place, and then after 2 days you just let it dry, and then if you want the roasted malt you just put it in the oven. If you want the active malt then you just let it dry in air temperature and just work it around that it dries for, I mean, I had it for 4 days around. Okay. That's it for this morning. We're going to enjoy that for our Sunday breakfast.